This is a continuation of my video series on charging and testing batteries. If you recall, in past videos I've talked about some of the frustrations we all have with batteries, and then I discussed the use of one of these new smart chargers, and in the last videos to date I talked about using one of these new conductance testers and demonstrated the results of using one of these. Well, in this video I want to do some practical application, if I could say that. I've got a couple batteries here that have recently been causing me a little problem. One battery, this Bosch battery right here, is only a little over a year old, year and a half old. And you know, the person that was using it, they did run it down dead flat one time. Literally drained the daylights out of this thing. But recently it's been in a computerized car, and the car's been doing some glitching and lights on the dash have been flashing. So what I want to do with this Bosch battery is find out whether there really is a problem with the battery, or could it be, you know, alternator output or some sort of bad contact in the wiring inside the car. But I'm going to use the test equipment that we talked about in the earlier videos to put this battery to the test, okay? Now the second battery here is approaching 4 years old. And I always tell people, I don't care what the warranty is, particularly on these newer computer controlled cars, they're so voltage critical that you just replace your battery at 4 years. I don't know how many batteries I've had, you know, seem to fail between 4 and 5 years. So as a general practice, if it's a lead acid battery, 4 years, set it down the road. You're going to be glad you did. So this will be interesting because this battery is exactly 4 years old. And what's happening is, in the car it's in, if I open the doors and leave them open for a long time, even the dome light can kind of, you know, lower the battery voltage. And just recently I had it real cold weather, it just wouldn't start it in the morning. So I pulled this battery out, and we're going to put this one to the test as well. So the first thing we're going to do is I'll show you how we'll measure the current condition of the battery. Then we're going to put them on standard charge, just standard charge, let them both get fully charged, and then we'll come back and test them again. So let's take a look. Right now I'll hook up the testers and we'll just see what these batteries are currently showing. In review, both of these batteries right here have been removed from the cars within the last couple days, and both were turning the starter motor over. So that doesn't mean that they're necessarily fully charged, but they were both, you know, performing as far as cranking. And other than that, I don't know what the internal condition is. That's what we're kind of going to try to do here. So we'll hook up the Bosch battery first with my conductance tester. Okay, we're reading 12.49 volts. We're going to select flooded lead acid cell battery. Cranking amps are 1,000 on this battery, so it's set at 1,000. Okay, we're ready to go. Let's do the test. Okay, there it is. It's showing this battery is currently delivering 800 cranking amps. That means it's at about 80%. And notice here that I'm getting a green light saying that the battery is okay. Now we'll move over to the smaller battery. Notice here I'm just using a couple of bolts to screw into these contact points. It's a little bit easier connecting testers and chargers when you do this. You want to make sure though, since you don't have round posts, that, okay, we have negative here, positive here, so let's reverse that. We'll hook up the negative to black and the positive to red over here. Now look at that, 12.33. So we're even getting more voltage reading on this battery here. We'll select flooded battery, cranking amps. Now this battery also says 1,000 cranking amps, so we're not going to need to adjust that. And we're ready for the test. Whoa, what's that? CHA? Come on. Okay, most of these chargers have codes on the back. Let's see what CHA says. It says, is the battery charged? Press enter. Toggle to yes or no. So it's asking me, it said, uh-oh, this battery's not looking good. So let's go ahead and just tell it that it's charged. Or maybe, no, let's try no charge first and see what happens. So I'll press enter. That's no, and if I go over here, it's yes. So I'm going to say no. Press enter. Wow. Look at that. It's telling me to charge the battery, and it's telling me that it has failed. It's currently only producing 194 cranking amps out of a supposedly 1,000 cranking amp battery. So this one is looking pretty weak, but we won't know. We really won't know until we charge both these batteries. We're going to charge them on the normal cycle, and then I'm going to let them sit overnight so they don't come off a fresh charge. Sometimes you'll get false readings on these when you try to test them right after you pull the charger off. So we'll do that, and in the next scene we'll come back and put them to the test again. Okay, I'm back. Yesterday we put these two batteries on my ctek smart charger. We fully charged them. Both batteries, we had full indication there was no error on the charging, and they both came up to the full charge indicator. That was last night at about 5 o'clock. So they have sat overnight. It is now midday the following day. I like to let, if I'm doing some serious testing, I like to let the batteries sit for 12 to 24 hours and then retest, because if there's a lot of sulfation in the plates, even though you can get a surface charge into them, overnight you'll get a real drop in both voltage and the results you'll get on that conductance test. So I think that's good. We can go ahead now, come back in here, and we'll test both these batteries and see how they're doing now. Okay, let's hook the tester up to the Bosch battery first. .88. Okay, that's pretty good considering it has come off a charge almost 20 hours ago. Okay, we'll select standard lead acid battery. We'll select cranking amps, and this is rated at 1,000. Okay, it's already set at 1,000. Now let's enter the test. Okay, look at that, 862. 862. Now that, it's acceptable. You can see the green here, but how acceptable is that considering this battery is less than a year old and we fully charged it yesterday? What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to write these results down. I'm going to go back and check. Okay, it was 12.85 on the voltage, and it was 862 cranking amps. I'm going to write this down, and I'll explain why and how we'll use that later on. Okay, coming over now to the smaller battery. Okay, 12.61. I'll jot that down. And this also is a 1,000 cranking amp battery. And let's run the test. Wow, look at that. We're only getting 224 cranking amps from this battery, and we have a red indicator showing that this battery has failed the test. Before I talk about the tests that we just performed on these two batteries, I want to discuss batteries in general and what causes them to fail. I think there are three prime reasons why batteries pot out on us. Number one is age. I mean, at some point, They just get old and there's not much else you can do. They do wear out. And I tell people all the time, look, I don't care what kind of car you have, but every 4 years, just change the battery at 4 years. Just change it. Even if the battery is good, it's supposed to be good for 5. 4 years, change the battery. And I can't believe how many batteries I've had that seem to wear out right around 4 years, even though the warranty may be for 5 years. So particularly on the diesels, which require heavy cranking amps, and on these newer computer-controlled cars, battery voltage is very, very critical on the newer cars. And you'll get all kinds of glitches and weird things going on, lights flashing and everything, when your battery starts to age and show signs of failure. So age, that's number one. Number two is letting the battery go completely dead. This is one of the hardest things you can do on a newer battery, one that is not, 3, 4, 5 years old. It's bad enough on those. And I'm not talking about just draining it down to where the engine kind of goes round, round. I'm talking about leaving something on like your headlights and running that battery down to where it is so dead that it won't even bring on your dome light. So you really need to be careful about letting your battery drain down dead. And then number three is overcharging. This can happen from a faulty voltage regulator or alternator output that's putting out more than, let's say, 14 amps. If it's putting out 14, 15 amps all the time, your acid could be bubbling in there, and it's really hard on the plates. The other way to overcharge a battery, and this happens all the time, is doing fast charging with a lot of these old style battery chargers. This is why I like these new generation of smart chargers. The one I have is only 7 amps. You say, well, Kent, that's going to take a while. Well, it might take a while, but it's going to be a lot better for your battery. You really don't want to be doing a charge on a lot of these batteries. Even the Optima batteries are susceptible to overcharging, so you have to be a little careful. So with that in mind, those three things, age, running the battery down, and overcharging, let's talk about these two batteries here. Now I mentioned this Bosch battery is less than a year old, but the owner did let this battery go completely dead. And we pulled it out of the car that was having some problems. I thought, wow, why is he having a little bit of light flashing and this is in a computer-controlled Mercedes. So I pulled this battery out and we put another in, and we're kind of monitoring what's happening on that. But that's the only thing I know about this battery, is it was totally discharged at one point here just about a month ago. Let's talk about the smaller battery. It is exactly 4 years old, almost to the month. And the symptoms in this battery were, you'd leave the doors open for a while and the dome lights, left the dome lights on for 30, 40 minutes, you come back, the car wouldn't start. Well, obviously, something was going on. I remember the first time I just put my voltmeter on and says, well, I'm getting almost 13 volts out of this battery, but look at the results on this battery right here. You're talking, what, that's 22%. This battery is only at 22% capacity the day after fully charging it. So hey, it's time to let this one go. But I'm concerned about this one because this was an expensive battery. Granted, it's under warranty. The problem is you have a hard time convincing whoever you take this battery back to that it's bad, because it is testing in the acceptable range. So here's what we're going to do. This is going to be a great test, because this charger has a reconditioning cycle. When you hook the battery up to this charger with the reconditioning cycle, it is putting a pulse charge into the batteries, and if the plates are not too bad, sometimes it will knock a little bit of that sulfation off the plates and let it fall to the bottom of the battery. I've had success with a couple batteries I've resurrected. So we're going to take the charger now. We're going to do a complete reconditioning charge on both these batteries. And then we'll come back and see those results. It's 2 days later, and I've given both of these batteries here a complete reconditioning charge on my ctek smart charger. Actually, this one here that was performing so poorly, I actually did it twice. I did a reconditioned charge up to, it was showing full, and then I took it off, and the next day I did it again. So this is going to kind of be the proof of just what these batteries are worth. You know, maybe we need to throw both of them away. Maybe both of them survived. But let me show you now. I haven't tested them yet. They came off a charge about an hour ago. So let's put the conductance tester on these two batteries and look at the results together. Let's start with the Bosch battery. If you recall, a couple days ago we had a voltage reading of 12.85, and we had been able to raise the cranking amp reading from 862 to 884 after giving it a full charge. So let's see what it tests at today after the reconditioning charge. Okay, we're reading 13.08 volts. And then let's select standard flooded battery. We'll do a cranking amp test. It's already set at 1000 cranking amps, and let's press enter for the test. Look at that, 913. So we were able to see significant improvement on this battery, and at over 90%, I am very happy with the results. Now let's go over to the smaller battery, which we know is 4 years old. And I'm looking here, after our overnight charge, we were able to get 12.61 volts out of the battery, but still, the cranking amp reading on this tester was only 224 out of a 1000 rated battery. So let's see if this reconditioning charge did anything to improve this one. Okay, we're looking at 12.69 volts. That's about the same. Let's run it through the test. This battery is also rated at 1000 cranking amps, and press enter to complete the test. Look at that, 362 cranking amps, and we're still getting a failed red light warning on the tester. At 362, that is well below 50% of the battery's capacity. So what do all these tests tell us? I think it actually tells us a number of things. Number one, not every old battery is savable. I mean, we probably already know that, and this kind of proves my point about 4-year-old batteries. What I found, by the way, in a lot of these batteries working with the reconditioning charge cycle and using the conductance tester, if I can't get over 65 to 70% of the rated capacity out of the battery, then it's probably going to be a problem battery. Now, if you've got it in a car that you drive every day, and the battery has a high rating to begin with, it might be okay. But for a lot of my cars, I don't drive them every day. They may sit a couple weeks, and having a battery that is only showing a 50 to 60% rating out of its capacity is a problem, because that shows you that there's quite a bit of deterioration of the plates or sulfation of the plates, and letting a sulfated battery sit, they just kind of go whoa, and drain down on their own. You could keep a trickle charger on them. That's another thing I would highly recommend, is if you have cars that you don't drive all the time, then get a little teeny float charger or a small trickle charger and leave that on the battery. You can't charge a battery with those, but if you have a fully charged battery, then putting that on while your car sits is probably the #1 preventative maintenance thing you can do on your car. So keep that in mind too. The other thing is, these new tools aren't the miracle cure for every battery situation either. There are obviously some other equipment out there that is even got more features, more sophisticated than what I've shown you here in these recent videos. But I feel for the average DIY home mechanic, these things are great. And I hope this video, in this whole video series, has been helpful. And by the way, as I'm out and about working on my cars, if I come and find another really interesting situation with a battery, I will sure and report back to you.